Hey everybody, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and it's time for an exercise in an imperfect metaphor. And this one's going to be bad and forced, but I think it might kind of work too. Let's just try this thing out. Let's pretend that you and 19 other people are stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean. It's a simple boat. It's an open boat. You got like no supplies, barely enough food to make things work, and you have to make your own little boat society in order to get along with people. But problem, 10 of the people on the boat just have to have direct sun all day long. They need that vitamin D. It's a matter of spiritual, philosophical rightness in their mind. If they don't have it, they're going to be real bad boat companions. There's not really enough boat for half of the group to have direct light and half of them not. This is going to be tricky, but the other half, they can't have the light. They don't want that. They need the shade. It physically hurts them. It's also an emotional, spiritual, philosophical right state of mind thing for them. And so we have a problem. You got 20 people on the boat. There's nowhere else to go but on the boat. I suppose option number one for resolving the problem would be just hope your 10 people are more muscly than their 10 people and murder them. Hurl them into the ocean to die, paddle away quickly, and hope that doesn't do something horrible to your soul or open a Pandora's box that will now result in 2 groups of 5 that do the same thing to each other, then 2 groups of 2.5 that do the same thing to each other, and then eventually you're left alone in a boat to die by yourself. Nah, you can't go the violence route. That is never going to work, even though everybody always seems to want to try it. That's not going to solve it. Nah, you know what you got to do. You got to step up. You got to take some leadership, regardless of which faction you're from. Because you, my friend, realize that you're going to need a shared ethic amongst all 20 people on this boat of how to coexist with people who need different things and want different things and think different things. Because the alternative is going to be what I just mentioned. It's going to be violent and it's going to be horrible. It's not going to end well for anybody. This little scenario that we just gamed out a bit is, obviously, it's a microcosm of the larger world that we live in. It's a boat. It's floating through space. There's only so much room. People think different things. You share resources. You share space. It's going to be tricky operating together. And you're going to need an ethic of what you do with people who aren't like you and don't think the same things if you're going to want to get by. If you just go raw violence, it's going to end horribly for everybody, and you don't want to be the one to open that Pandora's box again, even though some people dumbly think they will be the one person to crack open the Pandora's box of violence and have that not bite them and their tribe in the butt later on. No, but historically, any philosophy or religion or approach to life that is going to stand the test of time longer than a few decades or a century or whatever is going to be one that has an ethic of what to do with people who don't think the same thing. But how is that going to work with this kingdom that Jesus is describing? I mean, we're not talking about just an opinion here. If Jesus really was doing all of these miracles in front of everybody, and he really can back up all of these wildly authoritative claims that he's making, then, like, bro, that's God. That's God in the flesh. This isn't just the truest, realest thing, like an imaginary rock back and forth with your knees curled up to your chest, therapeutic, make yourself feel better about things thing. This is the real thing. So if this is the real thing, then you would need to obviously punish and get rid of all the people on the boat who are wrong and don't understand that this is the real thing, right? Well, except Jesus teaches the exact opposite of that assumption in all of the Gospels. There are plenty of times when people want to take up the sword on his behalf. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. And even fixes people who got injured by the swords that were swung on his behalf. There are plenty of times that people are like, those people wronged you. We should do something about that. Get out of here. Burn them with fire from heaven. And Jesus is like, no. We're going to do the exact opposite of that. Quit asking for murdering people with God power. Like that's not the plan. It's not the agenda right now. He consistently modeled to his followers that the kingdom was going to be something that would develop over time, and that it was not going to be brought into place through violence like what Peter wanted to do when he was ready to swing swords to defend Jesus. But I think much earlier than that, Jesus lays out a much more comprehensive ethic of how to interact with people who reject the kingdom and aren't in when you are a person who has embraced the kingdom and are in. Like, you don't just get beamed to space heaven the second you sign up to follow Jesus. You still live here. You still do all the stuff in the world, and you eat and drink and poop and you go to work, you're still a normal person that shares these same resources in these same space. Matthew 13 is where I think that happens perhaps most crystal clearly, and it is in this parable that you and I have been looking at for a few days now. It's a parable of the wheat and the weeds. This is the one where the master in the story goes and sows seeds, and things start to get cooking as those seeds take root, but then we find out that an enemy sowed bad seeds in the field, and the bad seeds at first look like the good crop. You can't tell them apart, and the servants are like, let's just rip the whole thing up. And the master is like, no, don't do that. You'll destroy the good stuff along with the bad stuff. Give it time. I'll keep an eye on it. And in the end, we'll be able to tell the difference and we'll sort that all out and it'll be okay. We're just not going to get satisfaction right this second. Paraphrase is mine. And he gives the cipher, the explanation to his disciples. And just to keep us up to speed, I'm going to read that to you right now. They asked what the parable of the wheat and the weeds means. And Jesus answered, the one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man, says Jesus. The field is the world, not the church. And the good seed stands for the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are the angels. As the weeds are pulled up and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. They will throw them into the fiery furnace where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear. So with that cipher from Jesus in mind, here's what I see going on. One, the parable idealizes patience. The master is patient. Don't go ripping everything up. You're going to destroy good things in there as well. The master is looking at it and saying, we're going to let these things grow up alongside each other, even though some of it's awesome and some of it's very, very dangerous and very bad, and somebody really should take care. No, I get that it's bad, but the master's take is long view, long term. Yep, we are going to tolerate some evil, some hurt, some suffering, some yuck. So kingdom citizens share this boat of life with world citizens, and all too often throughout church history, there have been voices that have suggested that the role of the church is to purge the world of these bad ideas. We're going to get people to convert, even by force if necessary, and we're going to make them live by the rules of a document they don't believe is from a God they don't believe is real. And, well, would we dislike it if they did that to us? Sure, but they're not in charge, now are they? This has been a very destructive, not sustainable mindset, and it is not in keeping with the patient, long view of the master in this parable, who is well aware that there are bad things and bad people, and we get it. Now, the Christian is, of course, called all over the Bible, including in the kingdom teachings of Jesus, to be an ambassador, a representative, an executor of grace and justice and mercy and all of that stuff. But taking up the sword to go ripping up things, well, this text indicates that we might get that wrong. It isn't the job of the kingdom citizen to usurp the role of God and be like, I know that eventually you're going to judge this, but you clearly just aren't aware of how bad things are and how wrong the wrong people are. So I am going to go tear them up and do what it takes to make this thing happen by force. No, what we see from the rest of the gospel, and even in Matthew 13, is that it is the role of the kingdom citizen to be a representative of the very contagious, truer, realer values of the kingdom. And the idea is that representing those things and putting them in front of people will be very compelling and bring about actual meaningful change in the lives of others, meaningful change that happens in the context of the kingdom as they receive the same thing that the kingdom citizen has already received. If you go and rip everybody up with violence of one sort or another, there's not much really opportunity for them to receive the same stuff that the kingdom citizen has received, which was so absolutely transformative. Further, this parable is incredibly liberating. It takes the pressure off of the kingdom citizen to fix everything. Again, what does the Lord require of you? Justice, mercy, walk humbly with your God. I mean, that's in there. That stuff is important, but you don't need a sword to do those things. The pressure is off of you. Take this thing that burdens the mistaken kingdom citizen the most heavily and just hand that part off to God. And in the meantime, all you need to do is give away the stuff that was given to you. Grace, patience, mercy, forgiveness. And when you add these themes that we just looked at together up, what you get is that ethic of the lifeboat. You get an ethic of something that is sustainable in a pluralistic world. Look, maybe before Matthew 13, people were hearing what Jesus was saying and seeing what he was doing, and they were imagining that everybody was about to convert and that Christianity was going to take over the world right then and dominate everything, and that's just how the things were going to be from now on. But once we get even a little ways into the kingdom parables of Matthew 13, those expectations are tempered. 3 of the 4 types of soil are going to reject this thing, which means that the sons and daughters of the kingdom are going to grow up right alongside the sons and daughters of the world kingdom. It means that from the perspective of the servant, at least, those things are going to be hard to distinguish at times. And further, it means that if kingdom citizens decide to go into purge mode or violent purge mode, God forbid, that we are going to rip up beautiful things that did not need to be ripped up because we just don't know what the heck we're doing, and we don't see things as clearly as we would like to imagine that we see things. In the history of Christianity, the church's worst moments are when they do the opposite of this parable and go wading out violently into the field with the sickle of judgment and even violence, laying waste to that which is beautiful and an object of redemption, as well as to that which could still be an object of redemption. The hubris of the kingdom citizen, the folly of the kingdom citizen who misses what Jesus is saying in the parable of the wheat and the weeds, is that such a kingdom citizen is like, I want a purge from evil. I want what James and John wanted. It's reckoning time. It's time to call in accounts. Now, obviously, I'm on the side of good, so I'm going to be fine. But I've had enough of these bad ideas and these bad people seeming like they're getting their way, and they're so smug and fat and happy like they're right. They are not right, and I am ready for God's judgment. Well, here's the thing. If we demand God's judgment, if we want him to get rid of all the things that commit evil or could potentially commit evil in this world because we're just tired of evil, we are also going to get caught up in that purge. Hopefully, we all understand that we are objects of potential evil. Hopefully, we're all familiar enough with ourselves and the problems that we run into and that we perpetrate at times to know that we do bad things. We victimize people. We screw things up. We need forgiveness. If we beg God to purge all evil or potential evil, we're short-sightedly begging God to purge us. But if instead the attitude is, hey, I trust the master. Let's give this thing some time. He's been right about everything else. I'm not going to go rip that stuff up. Further, I'm going to try not to even want to go rip that stuff up. I'm going to defer. I'm going to take this long view. Well, if we keep taking that long view, how much more redemption and glory is going to happen net? What if all the Christians who were being persecuted under Diocletian, or all of the Christians who were facing the horde as they tried to defend the borders of Europe and they were locked in these horrible wars in the Middle Ages, and they cried out to God, just come, end evil, and have the reckoning. What if they had had that prayer answered? I mean, bummer for you, sucker. Bummer for me. Bummer for everybody you've ever loved. Bummer for your kids. I get it. Evil is the worst. It stinks. Suffering is horrible. It's brutal to watch. Injustice is brutal. But alongside all of that injustice and ugliness and violence and gross stuff that we want to see go away has also grown up the beautiful redemptive work of God. And look, whether you are in on the whole Jesus thing or not, you're here. You're having this conversation. You're looking at things that are from God. That redemptive work is happening in big ways or small, even in you right now. If that reckoning had happened sooner, you, me, a bunch of other people would have been spared some very brutal, very difficult things. But also, if all the accounts had already been called in, you and me would either not exist or be on the outside of the story of redemption looking in. I know I went way longer than usual on this one. I'm sorry about that, but thank you for hanging in with me. I've got more that I want to unpack here. Maybe we'll touch on it more mañana. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.